Welcome back. We ask you tonight, do manifestos influence voters or voting in Kenya? Our political analysts look into this and other political events of the week. Talk to us. The hashtag is GameTime17 on Twitter. You can text us on 22422, the SMS line, that is. We begin with the manifestos. On Tuesday, NASA will launch its presidential manifesto. That's just a day after the Jubilee Party also launches its manifesto tomorrow, which will also double up as a scorecard of their first term in office. Now, these are some of the pointers we have as of now. Of course, the detailed manifesto will be launched tomorrow. If we can take a look at some of those pointers. Okay, we have job creation, creating jobs for the youth. They'll have an 18-month internship for university and TVET graduates. Infrastructure, expanding electricity access. Of course, Jubilee has been talking about this for a long time. The second phase of SGR, they're supposed to outline that. On education, both Jubilee and NASA have talked about this. Jubilee talking about free secondary education. There's also extra focus on higher education. Right, on health, Jubilee has talked about comprehensive maternal health care support or health support. Free medical cover for the elderly, that is over 70 years old. Food security, irrigation and boosting agricultural production and completion of water projects. That's just some of the key highlights. All of the highlights. I mean, we'll wait tomorrow and see what exactly will be contained there, but these are the highlights. The NASA agenda we've known so far, this is according to the 7 pillars: national reconciliation and healing, resolving historical injustices, including implementing the TGRC report, realizing equality of women, youth and persons with disabilities, strengthening devolution, transforming government, realizing social and economic rights, and eradicating poverty and employment. Of course, there are so many other things they've been talking about on the campaign trail. This, as I said, are just some of the pointers we have as of now. The detailed manifestos will be launched tomorrow or on Tuesday. Guests in studio now: Herman Manyora, Gabriel Muduma, Manu Magoma, and Barak Muruka. A lot of M's in studio. So, and Mohammed, yeah. So, any surprises from what you see? Of course, we are not sure. I mean, these are some of the highlights. We'll see the detailed manifestos tomorrow. Any surprises, or what do you expect to see tomorrow and on Tuesday? How can Jubilee's manifesto be superior to NASA, or how can NASA's manifesto be superior to Jubilee? Barak, let's start with you.
Okay, thank you very much, Hussein. First, I think that what we are likely to see from these two political formations, not necessarily what I would seriously call a manifesto. They are going to be statements of intent. Promissory notes, because the manifesto for this country was authored in 1963, where you are talking about the philosophical underpinnings and ethos, and that the statements of intent that I expect to see from these two formations would be statements that plug straight into the National Manifesto of 1963. What do I mean? I mean that in 1963 we were already talking about the kind of society that we want to form, the kind of nation that we would like Kenya to evolve into, that it is a nation which is a land of plenty, a land of liberty, a land of unity, a land in which justice is our shield and defender, a land in which the dignity of labor is respected, and in which the fruit of our labor is what fills up our hearts with thanksgiving, not what we have stolen or robbed from somebody. A land in which there is peace and where we see ourselves as one nation. And so the first thing that I'd like to see is a restoration of that sense of nationhood and national pride and national oneness. When you look at the social media today, you see a lot of hostility. When you look at even the political formations themselves speaking to one another and to their followers, you see a lot of acrimony. Is it possible that we are going to start seeing, and all these other things that they are saying, we will build schools, hospitals, whatnot, how are they contributing towards that bigger?
What is it that lacks in our manifestos? In the past, the manifestos that we've seen?
That the philosophical orientation is not there. When you talk about we are going to have a free education, free maternal care, we are going to employ youth, eventually with what? Where is the bigger visionary thrust, the bigger philosophical orientation about the country that we want to build, so that 5 years hence, when you say we created 100,000 jobs, that we gave free maternal care, that we built roads, so that it added up to what? Do we have that sense of the kind of society that we wanted to build, or are these things which are going to be forgotten because the philosophical underpinnings are absent?
Do you think they will influence voters?
First of all, I think we are starting to get at a place in our country where manifestos are starting to become important as a country generally. If I take you back in history, this is the very first time in our politics that candidates are starting to campaign on achievements and on development. From the first time that we got into multi-party politics, no government has ever gone forward to discuss that this is what I achieved.
That's
and
not
because of
true.
that,
he was not born, so we should not allow him.
No, but
we should not allow him to perpetuate a lie.
You know what? You spoke for 2 minutes.
Yes, but we cannot allow you to proceed on the basis of a lie.
It has happened before.
Yes, it has never happened. Tell me, when Moi was campaigning, what development?
Let me tell you,
what
from
development
Jomo
things did
Kenyatta,
Moi campaign about?
From Jomo
Tell me Moi's
Kenyatta,
manifesto.
before you even happened, we had Jomo Kenyatta.
I agree.
And I was a big boy, because Jomo Kenyatta died when I was 20 years
Tell
old.
me Jomo Kenyatta's
And
manifesto.
Jomo Kenyatta, oh, the Kanu
Come on.
manifesto was always there. Jomo
No,
Kenyatta
people
would
have
begin.
always shied away from discussing development.
You had not happened.
Including 2013. Let me just make my point. Including the recent election that probably most Kenyans can remember, in 2013, where both Uhuru then as a candidate and Raila then as a candidate were both in government. They both could not be able to discuss extensively what they had achieved or not achieved because they were both in government. This is the first time that we are having somebody who is in government who's
it's
able
not
to come,
the truth,
who's able to come forth and say,
well, we advise
but having said that, having said that, I think the manifesto is going to be about policy and rhetoric. If somebody puts forth a policy, do they have a plan for it? What is the plan? If somebody says free secondary school education, that's what Kenyans must judge. It does not matter which side says it. What is the plan for achieving free secondary school education? If somebody says money to farmers, what is the plan for making sure farmers are able to get money or fertilizer? If somebody says that we want to achieve national free health care, what is the plan for that? Because anybody else can write all these flowery things, but if there's no plan for it, then it's just prose and poems on a piece of paper. Okay. And that's what we must judge both parties by. I'll bring
Manyora and Muduma shortly to the conversation. I want him to respond to that specific issue very briefly. Yes,
you know, Jomo Kenyatta was re-elected twice unopposed, but he always produced a manifesto, a Kanu manifesto, and he always said that we have achieved the following things. And on the basis of that, I'm asking that I be re-elected. It doesn't matter that there was no political opposition. The manifesto was there. Okay. But if I just come closer to recent times, in the year 2007, Mwai Kibaki had a manifesto, and he was saying these are the things that we have achieved, and on the basis of that, kazi iendelee. Now, if you are not born, or if you have lost your memory,
let's not belabor the point. I mean, you say they've been. What you're trying to say, I believe, Manwa, is they are doing it on a different scale or level.
Yes, because it is the first time that we are having somebody who's not been in government, but there's somebody who's been in government.
I don't think you'll agree.
Previously,
you won't agree.
Both
you won't agree on
and Kenyatta were both unopposed as presidential candidates.
The two of you will not agree on that. I'm clear. But you've all looked at manifestos before and the voting patterns after. Do you think they will influence voters in any way? Haman?
I think to contribute to whether or not we have manifesto, I think, to be honest, there are no manifestos. I agree with Barak. A manifesto is a big thing. He talked about philosophical underpinnings. It simply means, what is your view of people? Both NASA and the Jubilee, if they were to be philosophical, their view will be that there are two sides. On the one side, we have the leaders, and on the other side, we have the voters, the workers, and the peasants. These are useless fellows. So, really, you cannot come up with any manifesto if, in the first place, your view of what people are is that bad. So, let's talk about campaign platforms. Because if you had a manifesto, it cannot be a manifesto of a presidential candidate. A presidential candidate could have a campaign platform. Now, when we come to the campaign platform, they are all useless. Even any villager will tell you, because they have been treated to these things. And I want to differ with this guy.
Okay.
They have been treated to these things from the 1960s. Water will give you. They have been told. These are things that people have been told repeatedly,
he's agreeing with me
until
that it must have a plan.
Listen, until even if you say that, people are just laughing. What are you talking about?
No, what I'm saying
And to answer your question more specifically, I don't think, if you ask me, any of these things that are going to be unveiled in the name of manifestos tomorrow and the day after will really affect the election. You are not going to win an election in this country on the basis of what you are saying you are going to do. Because, like I've said, and I want to repeat, people have had these things, water, electricity, laptops, name it. They have come, they don't even believe in them. So, they would not directly, therefore, they would not directly, to answer your question, affect the outcome.
I think, Hussein, you asked whether do the manifestos matter, and I think to a large extent we need to start by asking, do people even understand what the manifestos are? I like the word that Barack used because that's what I used last time. It's more like a promissory note. And today I'm liking how Barack is talking. He's talked like a statesman. So I give you that. You see,
I'm always a statesman.
When you talk about engaging society, I think, Hussein, what comes in is, do people understand that which you're trying to communicate? And I think in any leadership mantle, people need to feel that you're taking them to a certain direction. That's what I feel as a voter. Leadership is not primarily what you're able, to build, because really, if you look at the grand scheme of things, we are not going to have a lot of developments done. But if we are given a certain direction, this is where we are headed. That indeed is what Moi Kibaki did to this country. He showed us, you have a direction, we can go this. When Barack Obama was here, he gave us an example of where Kenya was with South Korea and where we were. And he gave an indicator that we have covered a serious mileage that we are only 15 years removed. That's the kind of argument I would like to be having. Now, wait a minute, I'm not finished my point yet. So comes to the question of, are people understanding that which is being communicated? I am liking how we talk about it does not matter, or people don't understand the manifesto, but some people are using the very same thing to counter what has been done by the government. They said, you promised this, you promised this, you promised this, you haven't done. But forget about that. What I would really hope we are doing in matters understanding where we are heading as a country, whether we have manifestos or not, is by looking at where the 21st century is taking.
Allow me.
I've got to say,
allow me briefly. We have said there are no manifestos, because manifesto is a big thing. I said here last time we talked about it.
Okay, so what okay,
I said
you think there are no manifestos.
Yeah,
so what did Jubilee launch in 2013? And what did CORD launch?
I want to get there.
Because Jubilee has been already, I mean, NASA or the opposition
I want to help
has been putting Jubilee on its toes based on the manifesto.
I want to help you understand this thing in a very simple way. There are no manifestos. What we have are campaign platforms. And these campaign platforms are themselves not effective. Why? The answer I've given you is because people have been treated with the same from the 1960s. What, however, could work in this country, and which is not about to work, is if any of the sides were to raise issues that touch the people, in much the same way Trump raised issues that touched and resonated with Americans. For example, when you talk about creating employment, what is your stand on second-hand clothes? What is your stand on second-hand clothes? What is your stand on dumping in this country? Supposing every Kenyan foot had a shoe that was made in Kenya, those are jobs. And you see, they will have
some of these issues have been in both manifestos.
Let me tell you, no, you are not getting the point. I'm telling you, the issues, they are skirting around the issues.
They are not specific, that's what you're saying.
Yeah, they are not.
the
issues are sensitive.
Like politicians.
Let me tell you, sensitive.
Okay. The Prof and Barack here are not telling Kenyans the truth. And I don't know which political party they hold brief for. But I hold brief for my mother and my daughter and a few people in my house.
Yes.
We must judge politicians by manifesto. And they're trying to water down what manifestos should be. It is the promissory note to Kenyans. It is that thing that politicians and political parties
I
must
think you are not listening.
and promise Kenya that, look,
I want to be given half a second.
Let me finish.
I want to help you.
Let me finish.
To understand
Let
a
me
few
finish.
things. Yeah.
Right.
If you give me leadership for 5 years, I will deliver the following thing.
Right.
So let them not water down manifesto. Maybe the
I wanted you to
represent.
listen.
I've said that
I was about to wind up.
I don't know.
Okay,
I
very
want to
briefly,
wind up very
briefly.
briefly. I've talked about employment. Okay. If you talk about food security, the issue you will put on table is the issue of land, for example. You cannot solve food security in this country until you solve the issue of land. How much land should somebody own? Who has land that they shouldn't be having in this country? Who, for example, produces fertilizer in this country?
Okay. I'll ask you one question, just to move this.
So what I'm saying is,
yeah,
those issues are too sensitive to be handled by these fellows, and therefore they hide in the so-called manifestos.
Okay. Yes. I'll ask you one very brief question.
Yes.
Jubilee has implemented some projects since 2013 based on their manifesto.
Yes.
And you're saying manifesto don't
They are not.
but there are things.
No.
There are.
Okay,
Let
him ask. Yeah.
So there have been some projects. For example, the SGR.
Right. Yes.
That were in the manifesto.
If you want, you can.
He's asking me, and I will answer you. I wish you were listening to me. A manifesto is informed by a philosophy. A philosophy is what you see about people. If you are coming up with SGR as a project to enrich certain people, which is the case in this country.
Why do you mean? What do you mean by people? But for you, Manuago, my question to you is: there have been manifestos before.
Yes.
The voting patterns in this country have been ethnic. So why would you say the manifestos matter? And a lot of feedback today, I say on Twitter and double two, people are saying the problem in this, yes, manifestos are important, but the problem in this country is that people will still vote along ethnic lines.
So, you know, the fact that we
somehow that means either there's a problem with the everyone in this country, or majority of people in this country, or there is a problem with how the manifestos are tailored, and that is what they were saying.
Those are the two things.
You see, Hussein, we must remember, if you interrogate NASA and Jubilee at the moment, Jubilee is campaigning on the platform of transformation. NASA is campaigning on a platform that I've not understood very well, but probably social change or something of the sort. That is the philosophy for both people. And it is for those reasons that we must be able to question ourselves as people, that is that good enough to elect these people? Okay? And when we might say it's treble numbers. But the fact is, in 2013, a lot of people saw Jubilee say, we'll give you SGR, we'll give you free laptops, our children free laptops, we'll be able to extend electricity, and they voted for them.
Yeah, and
they don't vote for the other people
that's
this particular matter. And that's the truth of it.
That's what we are calling a promissory note. It does not have a wider and longer visionary thrust that this is the kind of country that we want to put in place. And that is what belongs to a manifesto.
Okay.
That there's that philosophical underpinning that we talked about. You look at other things such as Kenya's Vision 2030. Where are these things going to fit in? We are signatories to the Sustainable Development goals of the United Nations. Where are we bridging all these things? And then you now start talking about these promises that are being made, and we do not dismiss those promises.
Thank you.
In the event that you are panicking, because I think you hold brief, for somebody.
I hold brief for my mother in my house.
All right, I want Barak to respond to this very briefly. Only Barak, because we are really running out of time on this matter of manifestos. So Jubilee's manifesto tomorrow will also double up as a scorecard of what they've been doing for the last 4.5 years or so. NASA will be different because they've not been in government. Now, some say having a scorecard and also saying what you'll do in the next 5 years for Jubilee is an advantage for them. Some say, no, it's a burden because they'll also be criticized of some of the things they did not manage to do when they do the scorecard. What do you think?
It's at once a disadvantage and an advantage, because you've been there, you have been tested. There are certain things which you promised, and you can say that we promised these things, we have realized them to such and such an extent. If there have been factors which have caused you not to realize what you promised, you can also explain why you did not. But within all that, if you have a clear underpinning of where you want to go, you can say that notwithstanding what we have not achieved, we are still headed in the right direction because our destination has been defined as such and such. And we would advise people...
And you'll be traveling with the people.
People who are not informed
we have more topics to cover.
To listen as we tell them these things so that they also get to
very
know.
quickly, because I also don't want us to run away from the fact when we talk about somebody having a promise or a manifesto. I began by telling you, Hussein, that people must understand. And that's why I say a manifesto works properly when the electorate is informed. So when it is driven directly to the people, the information, they understand. I would not, for sure, and we know this, Uhuru, when he leaves government, he's not going home with the SGR. He's going to be left. So you cannot say that, or purport for that matter, that, this is an Uhuru project. No, it's a manifesto or a promissory, as
whether
whatever you want to call it, whether you want to whatever you want to call it. And we have a, I would expect another administration coming in, to be able to carry on.
And I agree with you entirely.
What we are up against is what the 21st century represents. If we do not get that,
Hussein,
you'll have one administration coming
completely.
in. When they leave, another one comes in. They do, and we'll have a happy.
All right,
my concern is why this persecution mania. That when you open your mouth, people are afraid. They are feeling like you are accosting somebody. The SGR is a good thing. Now contextualize it in the strategic national visionary.
Rob said SGR is serving a certain community. You had that.
Do not
What I said was, if you had a manifesto, in that manifesto, you have people at heart, and you are planning with the people in mind. Then the SGR will be a people thing. It will belong to the people, so that
for the people, by the people.
No, it doesn't benefit one community, as you say.
I never said that.
No, you didn't.
Let's draw that. Okay. We'll have to move on from this. Tomorrow we'll see what the detailed manifesto of Jubilee will have, and NASA's on Tuesday, and of course we'll be covering that for you live. Right now, let's take a look at some sound bites here. Another interesting thing that has been happening on the campaign trail this week.
MP! 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 Mama! Mama! Senator! Senator! Governor! Governor! Rais! Rais!
Right, that is Raila Odinga on the campaign trail talking about six-piece voting, clearly, and also Uhuru Kenyatta.
Mimi sina chuki na wale wengine wanataka kutafuta viti. Hata hawa pia ni wetu. Sawa sawa? Nyinyi watu wa Meru ndio mtaamu. Tumekubaliana.
For NASA, there's also, even for Jubilee, there's also sibling rivalries up and above the problem of independence in this election. The question is for party leaders to come out in the open and campaign for six-piece voting with what is happening. Is that political courage or suicide for them, if you really need the numbers to win the presidency?
I think it is obvious, if you are to become president, you will need the numbers. And therefore, you will do everything within your reach to get those numbers. Because you can't be president without numbers. It's like being a general without soldiers and without guns. You cannot function. That is a fact. However, this is a tricky terrain, and you must navigate it very, very carefully. You've seen Uhuru in Meru saying, I know there are Munya's people here. I heard him say that. And I want my votes. You'll have to consider other things, because then it is not something you can approach in a blanket way. You cannot say you'll go out, and this, I think, could be one of the mistakes that Raila is making. I don't think you will go out in a way that it is uniform wherever you go, so that it's six-piece. No, you have to weigh the way I think Uhuru is trying to navigate. Some areas you say six-piece, some areas...
Yes, for instance, Raila has, for instance, said in Bungoma, everybody should leave it for Moses Wetangula.
You asking me.
And we've seen the other people from other parties saying, no, it's not.
I was expecting in Bungoma that Raila was going to bring Hangati, who is standing for governor, and then Mudavadi was going to bring Mutoro, and then they were going to tell these two gentlemen, Wangamati is ahead of you, let him send Lusaka home. I didn't see it, and therefore some of these other things are just shenanigans.
Okay.
I agree entirely that it's just about pep talk, and it's trying just to play it safe. But you cannot wish away these people you call independent candidates and the others on small parties. My family would have at least 200 people who would want to vote for me. If I don't have anybody else, yes, I would have 200 people.
True.
And if there are 5,000,
the minimum.
If there are 5,000 of us, you're talking of 1 million votes. If you're talking of 1 million votes which you want to compromise, you are really, really in trouble. So you've got to tread very...
I think the difficulty the two big countries are facing, and this is the truth of the matter, is that they've got independents who've got a bit of following, and those independents are asking, if I'm supporting you for you to be elected, why can't you support me to be elected? And that's a fundamental question.
But then that negates the point of party nomination.
No, I agree, but you see,
you're supposed to support
it does negate that
party,
point,
yeah.
but that's what is actually happening on the ground. And I think both candidates are quickly realizing that you cannot be able to go everywhere and make the declaration that it is a six-piece suit, and therefore nothing but only that.
I totally agree with what Prof said. You need an element of tactical inclusion, and by this I mean you have people from the parties who are coming to tell you know what, we campaigned under the banner of this party, and all of a sudden it does not seem as if you're campaigning for us. So for the party leaders, I think they're between a rock and a hard place. But like Manyoro has actually said, you've found Uhuru is very tactful when actually he visits places. I mean, in Nyeri you had people shouting and saying, no, I'm there, we are giving you that vote. But when it comes to this other leadership,
leave it to us.
They leave it to us. So it's a dicey situation.
Okay. The other thing that has also been very interesting over the last 1 or 2 weeks, but we really noticed it this week, some people have been talking about it, it's a competition by this, especially Jubilee and NASA, on the campaign trail. Who has the best panoramic pictures? We've been trying to see, I mean, it's like competing to show who has the crowds. And I don't know if we have those pictures. Right, we'll have those pictures shortly. I mean, is that a strategy, these crowds, trying to show them? Does it work politically? And what is the significance of large crowds anyway?
You see, in situations such as ours, you cannot wish away crowds. Therefore, optics are part of it. And you saw last year, even in America, Trump brought it to America, that the crowds all of a sudden in America began to matter. He was talking very proudly about the crowds, that we are here, this place is full, others are outside, others have had to be stopped from this venue, etc., etc. And therefore the crowds are a part of the politics in this country. And there are those who are saying that you could have these crowds and they are not coming because they will vote for you. The truth, Hussein, is that how many of us can raise those crowds?
I can raise 200 people.
It's a psychological tactic. Nobody wants to support a losing... not to intimidate, but nobody wants to support a losing candidate.
This is for the voters.
Yes.
Not even your opponent.
No, not even for... It's for the voters.
Yes.
The voters will feel comfortable with numbers.
Exactly. That I've seen my candidate has crowds. If I was undecided, I'd rather be on the winning side rather than on the losing side.
But they're seeing crowds now in both sides. So
and actually,
it is also true that some of the crowds are rented, and it's also true
across the board.
Across the board, yes, some of the crowds are rented. That people are bussed in or trained in to come in, and there's also a very significant point which we should not miss. That where do you get these crowds in the middle of the week on a working day? Yeah,
it shows you important elections.
It shows
a very good question.
It shows that there's idleness, there's joblessness, because these people are not saying anything new.
I think we should also have Jubilee crowds.
When you listen
so that in Meru, we should have them on the
when you listen to the NASA message, nothing new is being said. You listen to Jubilee, it's ule mtu wa vitendawili. There's nothing new.
When it comes to crowds, those are three things, and it's perception, perception, perception. And my good friend has actually alluded to that by saying, you know, nobody wants to follow a week.
But beyond the crowds,
when you have this, whether rented or not, people don't. I mean, people will see, you know what, I would rather join this bandwagon. They seem to know what they're talking about. But at the end of the day, there's something we used to say while we were in school. Until the fat lady sings, That's when they'll know.
Okay. Finally, I mean, and Barack talked about this. We've seen a lot of, I mean, going to the election, especially on social media, there's a lot of hate, ethnic animosity on social media. And many have pointed out that, in fact, the most interesting thing is that when you look at these tweets or these posts on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, the people who are talking, from the language they're using, how they're texting, you can tell that these are people who are very, I mean, they're learned people.
Correct.
Yet they're talking like this. I mean, what does it mean for Kenya going forward? And how dangerous is social media for us, especially going to the election?
I think we are sitting in a very bad place when the best behave in this.
Of course, social media positives and negatives, but
yeah,
this
but
one,
this is extremely dangerous. When W.B. Yeats was writing the poem "The Second Coming," he said that the worst are full of passionate intensities, and the best are full of doubt. I would expect the learned just to stop at that level where they are full of doubt. But when you find that the best, the learned, the intelligentsia, the professors, and you listen to them arguing everywhere, they take that partisan, ethnic, dried in the wool position, and they are very hostile. You go to the senior common room, this is a senior common room gentleman, and I want to propose that the professors there are just speaking like the villagers. You don't find anything professorial in the discourse that they are having. Now this is very dangerous. We need to find a path where the learned people in this country return to the rational path and they look at things objectively in terms of internal merits and demerits.
Okay. You know, Hussein, and you've been in media for a long time. I'm sure even you as an individual, you've received a lot of negative or hate comments on social media. And these are people who hide behind keyboards and cannot come to the face to face you. Some of them have your number. They know you personally.
Yes.
But they'll go on social media under a certain name and write all sorts and manners of things. And it is because sometimes, one, people just want to make sure that the tweets or the comments are liked by thousands and thousands of people, and that they're misguided in their thinking. Yet when you meet the person and you ask him, Chief, what did you mean? And the person say, you know, it's just social media, this thing.
Does it have an impact on the election, and especially the issue of fake news? You've seen how videos are being manipulated.
Yes.
So will they have an impact? Do you think they will have an impact on the election?
Well, yes and no. But you see, when you talk about this hate speech in social media, you must also look at what is happening in America. Sometimes when people try to cover things, there is a way in which they will come out. America may be trying to say it's a race-free society. That is not the truth. And once in a while, one would say once often, you see things coming up to remind Americans that you are trying to sweep this thing under the carpet. You had better address it. I think we in this country have a tribe problem, which I don't think we should encourage hate speech, but it is speaking to something that we are running away from all the time. There's tribalism in this country. It is generated by our history. It is generated and sustained by people who seek state power, and unless we face it courageously and openly, and you see, when a leader, for example, says certain things, how do you expect the small people to say? When I don't want this to be an issue, but when somebody of the level of the president refers to Raila Kemondogeke,
yes,
Mogoroki,
Uno.
and even
So where's the sense of nationhood? And that must come in the manifesto.
It really doesn't augur well for the togetherness of this country coming from that high. And even Raila, for example, there are things that he says, like when you go on a platform and talk about the military being involved in politics. So I am saying you can indict our leaders, and that you could also argue that the small boys down there on the keyboard are taking up after our leaders, and they are seeing the way from independence, the way the national cake has been shared by those who have been in power. It has shown that tribe is important when it is not, and therefore much as we condemn this violence, and I tell my students at the university, even as you condemn a Luo, maybe your father is a Luo. How do you know your father is a
You see, the internet is a very powerful